Hello, it's Victor here, and I'm back with ideas for saving money on food. I think food is one of those areas of our financial lives where it's very easy to let things get out of control very quickly. It's really easy to overspend on food, especially when we're eating out a lot, which may not be happening so much these days, but eventually we'll return to a state of normalcy. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the ideas. This first idea is pizza. Now, I realize that there are some people out there that don't eat pizza on a regular basis or like it, but I'm one of those people that loves pizza. I love it. I don't know what it is. It's just delicious, and I don't like bread or cheese, but somehow I like pizza. I don't know. It's a magical food. But eating pizza out can be really expensive, or ordering delivery can be really expensive. One of the things I do is to make sure that I always have a really cheap cheese pizza stocked in my fridge. So they're like $2.50 or $3 at the grocery store, and they're just like a plain cheese frozen pizza. And I make sure I always have one of these in my freezer at all times. Then I'll add my own toppings to it, usually like mushrooms and onions and like sometimes pineapple or avocado, whatever I have on hand really. And that way, if I'm ever craving pizza and tempted to order delivery, I'll just remember, oh, I have a pizza in the freezer I could just make and it would cost me $3 instead of $12. And then I do that instead. Now, if you're someone who is trying to monitor what you eat and don't maybe have the best self-control, and having like unhealthy food like in the freezer all the time would be like tempting to you, this is maybe not a great idea, but it is a great way to save money. I especially like adding my own toppings to it because, I don't know, it just like, toppings are expensive when you order them from like a restaurant or like get it delivered. I don't know why, because mushrooms are like super cheap, and I don't know why you're charging me $2 just to put mushrooms on my pizza. I could get like a whole carton of mushrooms for $2 and eat mushrooms for a week. Anyhow, that's my rant on that. Moving on. The second tip I have here is one word: tofu. Now, if you're a meat eater, then this might not sound like the most appealing idea ever. I'm pretty meat averse, so I eat a lot of fish and like seafood type things, but I don't really eat as much meat. But I love tofu. It's delicious. It's super cheap. It's like $2.50 or $3 for like a little block of just tofu, soybean deliciousness. And the beauty with tofu is you can make it all sorts of ways. So when it comes to making tofu, knowing how to make the tofu is really, really key with whether you like it or not. I think for a long time I thought I didn't like tofu because it was just like bland and watery and like squishy and kind of gross, and I just didn't like it. And I realized it was because I was making it wrong. And so I've learned to make tofu properly. Really, the key steps here are: 1, make sure you pat it dry and get all of the water out of it. 2, make sure you marinate it in something that is delicious. And 3, what I like to do, I like crispy tofu, and so what I like to do is I'll put like cornstarch, like mix it in with the tofu, and then I'll bake it for like 20-30 minutes, and it comes out nice and crispy, and it also has flavor, and it's like perfect. I love it. It's delicious. So how's this gonna save you money? Well, tofu is super cheap. It's like $3 for a block, and like for me, if I am making it in like a stir fry or like adding it as a protein to the rest of my meal, 1 block of tofu for me lasts me maybe 4 meals. So that's like the protein for 4 meals, which is pretty substantial for $3. Now, this is of course an alternative to meat or fish or seafood or whatever else you would be eating instead. But it is delicious and it is cheap. And it's also less work to actually make than meat. Like, I don't know, for some reason, like, I think meat is just like, just to prepare it and cook it and like all of that, it seems like a hassle to me, and like tofu to me is just easier. Tip number 3 is to make expensive or fancy foods at home. So for me, this means like scallops or any kind of fancy fish or sushi. For some people, this might mean a fancy meat. And so I think a lot of times we like get ourselves into thinking like, oh, that's too hard, I can't make it right at home. And there are certainly like meals like that. Like for example, beef Wellington is like super, super involved and intense, and unless you're like a good chef, it's pretty hard to do that at home. It's also pretty time intense. So like, you know, if you're eating out and like it's a fancy meal and you're splurging, then like sure, eat beef Wellington out. Like, don't make that at home unless you want to. That would be cool too. But for other things, there are some like expensive or fancy foods that are pretty expensive if you eat out, but are so easy to make at home. Like, the number 1 example I can think of this is sushi. Sushi is like It's super easy. It's so expensive if you eat it out for some reason, but it's so easy to make at home. You just get the nori, and then you make rice, and then you put the rice on the nori, and then you put your fish and your cucumbers and your avocado and anything else you want inside the sushi, and then you roll it up, and then you cut it. Some hacks for sushi at home are using imitation crab or like imitation lobster, as well as using smoked fish or cooked fish like smoked salmon instead of raw salmon. If you want to avoid like any sketchiness around raw fish and don't want to pay for the sushi grade fish. Some other meal ideas here are, let's see, some personal favorites are scallops. I'll make like scallops at home and then like make a spaghetti squash and then like plate the spaghetti squash and then put the scallops on top, and then I'll do like a little side of like spinach or mashed potatoes or something like that. And it feels like a really fancy meal because scallops are expensive, but I made it for like a quarter the price at home. So just for context, if I wanted to order a scallop dish eating out at a restaurant, it would cost me like $30, but I could get a whole package of scallops like at Costco for like $30, and then I could eat scallops for like a week for the same price as that one meal that I would eat out. To me, this is a great way to feel like I'm pampering myself and feel like I'm still like eating like a king at home, but do it like less expensively than I would otherwise. So essentially just eating the fancy things and the expensive things at home rather than paying an arm and a leg for them eating out. Now, I think those previous tips are particularly timely given the whole quarantine situation, so hopefully most of us are eating in more anyway. But this last tip is a little bit forward-looking for when the world opens up again and we can go physically inhabit a restaurant while we consume our meals. And that tip is to order the less expensive items on the menu. I think that this presents a few perks. One, it's really easy, I think, to size up because, like, oh, it's only like $1 more, $2 more, and you get like twice as much. But I think that over time, those $2 every meal kind of adds up. Furthermore, if you think about ordering like a salad versus ordering like an expensive steak, like there's a pretty substantial price difference there, right? And you may think, oh, well, the meat is a more expensive thing anyway, and so I'll just get that because it's more worth my money than eating greens for like $10 or whatever it is. I'd rather eat the steak for $17. But over time, those $7 definitely add up. And then I think there's kind of like a hidden benefit to eating on the less expensive end of the menu, which is that those items and those options tend to be a little bit healthier. They tend to be smaller portions or not as hearty meals. So, I mean, if you just finish running a marathon and you're pretty hungry, then, like, yeah, eat the steak. But if you're just kind of, like, you know, going out with coworkers after sitting at your desk all day, then maybe going for the salad is a better option, not only for your financial health, but also for your physical health. So yeah, that's all I've got. Those are my 4 favorite ideas for things that I actually do that kind of help me save money on food. I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time.